Even a car can't kill this beetle. Here's
Oh
why.
man, I'm not gonna lie. I think my your insect segments are my favorite.
Oh, cool, man. I love. I was it was one um, insect ecology class that really like changed my view on insects, and because I was an evolution major, and I through the first time kind of saw these insects as, I mean, they're like the conquerors of the first animals, really. They're before plants, going out there, conquering land, and it's just so cool. I just think that they are the true warriors of the um, to the land. Oh, before we go off, can we got a question from chat? Can AI ever be considered living? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I guess it's.
Can it reproduce?
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's whoever defines what living is, and so
Yeah.
Yeah.
um,
I mean, as a biologist, I'm a little. I'd have to think about this because, in my opinion, viruses are alive, which is not the consensus among the biological field. But
Right, because
so,
it can't reproduce, right? Isn't that like the thing?
oh my God, don't start, don't start. But there's a lot of parasitoids that can't like reproduce without their host organism. So if that's your criteria, then you're gonna have to throw out a lot of insects too.
Interesting. Okay.
So we could have a whole episode on this. I'm telling you, we should have a debate on this. I'm not joking. It'd be really cool.
That's a
Um,
that's an interesting way to look at it.
so, um, okay, wow. In additional experiments, the Rivera and colleagues found the beetle's toughness and strength arise because the two halves of its outer wing cover are connected like joined jigsaw pieces. The bulbous shape of the interlocking lobes and the right number of them, about five, optimize these properties, Rivera and colleagues report in Nature. In addition, the supports between the wing cover and the body are structured as to protect vital organs. Whoa.
it's kind of cool. Like this, there's this whole field of like biomimicry.
Mm-hmm.
It's, we, this is why it's so, sad for us to think that we're losing species that we've never really
Exactly.
explored.
Exactly.
Where nature has created such cool ways to engineer things that we as humans will steal to create better and far superior machines to what we've been able to create just on our own.
Absolutely. I mean, right here, we are looking at the next generation of bioplastics. This is what your car might be made of in the future instead of metal. Because this stuff
Oh,
is stronger.
fascinating.
This stuff is stronger and it's more bioavailable. It can actually degrade. It can, instead of plastics, what if we use something that was made out of, the shells of this thing? I mean, it's
Yeah.
completely possible that's where a lot of this is going. There's a lot of structural engineers that do a lot of research into chitin shells,
Yeah.
into diatoms and that kind of structure. So I mean, the one question I had, Miller, was what are bioplastics and algae looking like? Could we use plants to create these plastics?
Yeah, I mean, basically, at the end of the day, you just need a plant oil, and then you can turn that into a plastic. And so, in the algae world, you got companies like Algenesis who are, working and creating flip flops that are, biodegradable. What's cool about bioplastics is because they're slightly different in structure than a typical plastic made from a petroleum product. They'll actually degrade. So you don't get the issues that you have with those kind of traditional plastics that then accumulate in the oceans. And so I think that's the cool thing about what we do as scientists is that you can create things that are useful, but then you can also, rethink how we did things in the past. I think that's the kind of problem as a society as a whole, though, is when you think about we become comfortable with what we use, right? I can't tell you how many conversations I have had with even slightly liberal leaning people who
Mm-hmm.
plastic, right? But they can't seem to wrap their heads around a new way to do something that would be, better for the environment. And so, definitely getting people to experience this new world of science, I think, might help them to be more comfortable with those things.
Yeah, because I mean, the biggest thing with petroleum-based plastics is that they don't actually biodegrade, right? What happens is they just break down into smaller and smaller nanoparticles that then invade fish, and that's why every single fish now has some type of plastic in the mussels, and then we eat those mussels and we're eating the plastic.
That's correct. Yeah, you see that not just fish, but a lot of crustaceans in the ocean. So shrimp, that's a major problem too.
So it's I mean, and pound for pound, these things are insane. I actually
Yeah.
saw one of the coolest ones was spider silk with nanotubes, carbon nanotubes, which is a type of nanoparticle, um, which is just like to try to bolster it, which I thought was really cool. Here we go. Here's this thing getting run over.
Hey,
Look
test
at
one.
this. Boom. Short and sweet.
Diabolical
Look at that.
Oh my
ironclad
gosh.
beetle.
Boom. Look at that. It was right there.
He's
No
fine.
fracture.
Love that video.
Still
Reminds me
alive.
of like 2005 YouTube where it's just like, short and to the sweet, and then right to the point.
Yeah.
Like, boom,
Yeah,
boom.
I kind of wish they would have put him on just the asphalt though.
Test one.
I know. He's in a little
Yeah.
pile of dirt. It
Diabolical
kind of cushioned
ironclad
his impact.
I don't know. He's right on the top there. I don't.
Hey,
Or
test
it
one.
is.
Diabolical
No,
ironclad
he's got to
beetle.
earn it, man. I don't give him that.
It's not good enough. I don't
That's a little
know.
crap right there, man.
That's incredible. Yeah, I do agree. I think that.
I was promised one thing. I was, sold a bill of goods.
Yeah, it's just interesting that, especially diatoms. I mean, if you haven't seen a diatom up close, you are missing out. I mean,
Yeah, those
they-
silica shells that they have, man, they're
yes.
cool.
I mean, there is an entire world of microbiology that exists that we don't even see with our eyes. I mean, you're so limited by the wavelengths that our eyes can see, and it's because they're big enough to like see citrus fruits. They're not big enough to see microbes on the on the ground. So it's like,
Yeah.
so we really miss out beyond the 400 to 700 nanometers that we normally see. And so these intricate structures, people are looking at trying to see kind of like the strengths and what can we do and what can we kind of use and what we can make things out of to make things even stronger than concrete, stronger than steel.
Yeah.
So
It's kind of interesting, man, in the microbial world, even in the food space that I'm in. You think about how many things are actually designated as food in various countries. It's not that many. It's a handful of things. And so, when you think about even eating animals, at the end of the day, animals are bioreactors that are converting some other thing that they ate that ultimately created energy from sunlight. And you've got these multiple conversions from a microbe, a photosynthetic microbe, all the way to an animal that we then eat. All this lost efficiency. And so, for a lot of us in the microbial world, we're trying to create microbes because then you eliminate these multiple steps of inefficiency and energy loss basically from an organism that just did photosynthesis. And so definitely a lot of things out there that make a lot of interesting, not just bioproducts, but, food that Joe Schmo can go hopefully one day down into the grocery store and buy.
yeah, exactly, because you have photosynthesis, right? The energy and going from the sun into the primary producer, which is the making that molecule out of that photosynthetic energy, and then from that grass, then you have the herbivore that's eating that grass, and that herbivore's muscles are so dislike the plants that they're eating. It's like, I think they get like 10% energy conversion or something. It's insanely low.
Yeah, one cow is like, for every 1 kilo that a cow eats, every 10 kilos a cow eats, it makes 1 kilo of actual body weight.
Wow.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then when you go from herbivores to carnivores, you'd think that it'd be better, and it kind of is because you have meat to meat, but then you have like all of the energy expenditure to get there. You have all that like mastication and biting it down, and there's a lot of energy that's expended in that, and that's why the carnivore is like so rarely that's why they so rarely go out and hunt, which is why, going back to what we were talking about before, it's so important that they actually can hunt and go on these large, meandering things, these meandering hunts. So it's, wow, microbiology is such a cool subject.
I can tell you like it, Greg.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Man's got a passion.
All right. Well, all right, Miller, do you have anything else you want to go over, man? You want to talk about anything else?
Man, I think that what's exciting about, tomorrow and not just tomorrow, but our future is that, science and I think engineering are just two fields where there's not enough people to fill the jobs that are available.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that, a podcast like yours will inspire more people to come to this interesting field, not just as academic scientists, but in industry. And I think that we're going to be able to do great things once we get the brightest minds working in our fields.
Definitely. I think that there's so much left to discover, and one of the biggest fallacies out there is like, we're doing pretty good. What's there left to discover?
Yeah.
I can't. Think about that. Think about that 100 years ago, when someone was like, "Wow, the airplane, we're done. We're done."
Gotta be done now.
Yeah. What else? We did it. We did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you think about some of the breakthroughs is, in the 70s and 80s, we made microbes make insulin, which changed, how many people survived from diabetes. And then, and now we have, people who can do CRISPR-Cas9 to help hemophiliacs. And so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so many cool things happening.
Yeah. Bringing it back, CRISPR. How did we miss CRISPR for so long? That's what blows my mind. How pervasive it was, and it is currently in so many microbes. And here we are, just finding out about it now. And even, oh my gosh, don't even start about the world of microbiology. And then basically the whole field is founded on like 24, maybe 100 organisms. I mean, it's very, very rare to have something that you can actually grow in the lab, you can culture, you can actually do experiments on, that you can actually inject DNA and actually make mutations in. I mean, 99% of microbes out there we haven't grown in the lab, we haven't sequenced, or that we can't genetically modify. So I mean, and that's a whole world of biomolecules. It's a whole world of new ways that proteins could be made, new ways that they could be expressed, regulatory patterns, all that kind of stuff. And it's all just out there, and it's out there right now.
Yeah, and you think about CRISPR even, man, just think about the concept of CRISPR. It's that a bacteria basically has an immune system.
Exactly.
That's something that I think a lot of people don't understand, that how we were able to as a society, discover a bacteria's immune system, and now take that technology and revolutionize kind of the healthcare industry. And we're just starting to see a trickling of some of the advances that are being made with that technology now.
Exactly. And how long that's been there. I mean, it's basically like a top 10 like hit list, right? Like what is it? Like when you put up like a wanted list or something, it's like this, if you see this DNA sequence, you better cut it, and it's remembering.
But I'll tell you what, yeah, we'll have to discuss that, maybe another time, but just the ethical questions with CRISPR and the ability now to engineer embryos, basically, to create, in essence, whatever it is we want to make. And so there's a lot of just ethical issues that will have to be discussed at another time.
I'm really I'm excited that in science people are talking about it more. I mean, normally, like for example, at a conference, you'd have like the ethics discussion be at the last panel of the last day, and nobody would go to it. But now they're trying to like weave in those ethics panels, throughout the day at these conferences, trying to gauge, more discussion on it. I mean, it's definitely.
I think that's the thing, though, is that when we didn't have the ability, we didn't need to discuss many ethical questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the whole Spider-Man adage, right? With more power comes more responsibility, and so definitely needs to be something that's discussed further.
Yeah, I think. I mean, in general, though, I mean, at the same time, I think that it's one of those things where if we don't do it, someone else is going to, and what is the moral implications of them creating the precedent too? Because then we have to roll it back, and we have to go forward at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, it's just it's almost like when you think about it, creating the atom bomb.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You create it, so then your competing country or competing, civilization feels the need to create it, and so, where it stops. I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, it's in a weird way, like for example, the stem cell ban by George W. Bush actually pushed people to look into researching new ways to artificially create that kind of like host kind of thing. So I think with restrictions, there's still some type of research still going on no matter what happens. It's just what's the end product, and it's the ethical question of, if people are wondering, it's like, okay, so let's say you had a mutation where you had we're curing some type of disease, but then what happens to, and it's let's say it's really good, right? Let's say it's 90% effective, which is incredibly good. What happens to those 10% of embryos that don't have those mutations now? What happens to that 1% of mutation of embryos that have a deleterious mutation where it's an off-site mutation and now it's even worse? Or what happens to that 1% now it's better? Now it has like some growth ability that we weren't thinking about. I mean, there's so many things to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it comes back to that what we were talking about a little bit at the beginning, which is, at the end of the day, as a scientist, if I had to make my bet, I'd bet on the fact that diversity of genes ultimately is what we will need to survive what we just don't know we need yet. And so I really do think that, I worry about that whole engineering of the superhuman, but you're engineering it for today's world. But what about, 200 years from now world?
Thank you so much for watching. If you like this content, please subscribe to be notified of our latest live streams where we have scientific debates, informative conversations about issues, and follow the latest advances in science. If you want to join a thoughtful, non-toxic community where we have good discussions about science and other issues, please join the Discord. The link's in the description. Thanks again.